Afternoon, everybody. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. I am excited because I am bringing to you guys today videos that I'm making on winding up some of my recent overhaul projects. I just created a video for the white rotary 77 sewing machine restoration project, and I just did what I call a sewing off. This is the final thing that I do on a sewing machine before I post it for sale. I actually do a test stitching on it to check out its function after I've given all the work to it, and I make any adjustments that I need to make. So this is the Janome 642 hybrid vintage model, and unlike the old white rotary, this is a hybrid because it is still made of very heavy-duty steel construction, but it has some more modern components, including some of the nylon cams inside. Now, one last thing I need to do to the machine, and I typically save this for last because this is the last procedure that has nothing to do with the function of the machine, but it does have to do with the aesthetics. Sometimes machines sit for long periods, and as many of you have asked me, and I've done videos before on the black lacquered machines, this sewing machine was made approximately 1977 or so, before we get into the 1980s, and it has a painted finish, and I'll be cleaning it, but as many of you know, I really avoid the use of something like rubbing alcohol on paint because it can really destroy the paint. Now, I don't know the chemistry of this paint. I don't know if they were still using lacquers in the late 70s. Maybe they weren't. But in any case, cleaning your machine should not be that challenging with one of the most basic cleaners that you can use. And many of you, of course, already have it. And this is sewing machine oil. Now, you might think, well, why is sewing machine oil used as a cleaner? Because it's, of course, a lubricant, and it's not a cleaner like WD-40 and those other penetrant products are. Sewing machine oil is a lubricant. But the reason it makes a pretty good cleaner for sewing machine finishes is because most of the time, if a sewing machine is stained, there can be exceptions to this, and I want to zoom in and let you guys see. Most of the time, let's turn it around and get a little more light on it. If you see something on a sewing machine that looks like a stain, of course you can take a brush. I would use something softer than this. This is actually my cleaning brush. But just demonstrating for you guys, get any of the loose dust off that you can with something, just get the dust off before you put any kind of solution on there. And I'm taking a paper towel in this case. I would use maybe a tissue or a soft cotton. A facial tissue is softer than this. And for the lacquer painted finishes, I really prefer that. I wouldn't use even a paper towel on those. But this finish is a different, there's a different kind of paint finish on here. It's not the clear-coated lacquer from the earlier period machines. So, as I mentioned, always put anything you're going to use as a cleaner on the rag, not onto the body of the machine. Now, let me zoom in again so you guys can see a little bit better here. That's better. One of the reasons that sewing machine oil makes a good cleaner is that after you've gotten any dust off, typically the reason you see this discoloration, it's not rust. It's actually old sewing machine oil or grease. And so when you take new oil, you'll find, or you may find, we'll see, that you can do some rubbing and you'll start to get this older oil, which is basically what you're looking at. That's what's coming off. And so the new oil is simply dissolving it, and there's not going to be any harm to the paint finish. Okay? If there's one thing that the manufacturer knew would get on a sewing machine, it was oil. And so the oil typically, I have yet to ever see a painted finish that did not appreciate the oil, actually, because the oil helps to clean the machine, and you can see this is coming off. Now, if you take anything stronger than this, remember, you are experimenting on your machine or someone's. And do you really want to do that? Because you can end up harming the paint finish, and you don't need to, right? Because you can see what I'm pulling off of here, what's coming off with just sewing machine oil. And this is an aesthetic thing, but, if someone's paying for a sewing machine that has been reconditioned, I like to clean the machine and make sure that it's aesthetically in good condition. And as I mentioned to you all before, on some of the older machines, if there are old scratches and worn places, I don't repaint those. I leave those alone. To me, that's part of the history of the machine. It's the beauty marks, if you will. But something like this is kind of satisfying when you've gone through the whole machine mechanically. I've done my initial test stitching, which I've shown in the videos, and now this is the final. We're going to give it a final test before I list the machine, and find someone who could really use this. And obviously, you can see what I've gotten with the paper towel, and I'm going to go get my trusty cotton swabs next. Now, if there was ever anything that is involved in sewing machine overhaul, restoration, that requires patience, it is often when you get to this final step. And you may be thinking, wow, I'm ready, I just want to clean it and go. But cleaning a sewing machine is something you want to take your time with. Remember that some of this that's on the machine, it could have taken years to build up, right? The machine may have been stored in an attic or in some place where it sat for a while. And I can usually tell. I can tell when I get a machine how long approximately it's been sitting, where it's been sitting, whether it had a lot of use in its life or whether the person who got it, maybe they didn't like sewing. Some people got sewing machines as gifts and they were not particularly fond of sewing, but in the past, some people were pressured into having to sew and they might not have liked it. And I've always been able to kind of notice this on other machines. So here you can see me doing this, and I'm basically just going over the machine, pulling out some of the old oil. That's all it is. There's nothing really damaging about this, but I like to go over the machine and give it a nice cleaning. Now I'm going to take one of these. This is one of the fabric samples that I did some test sewing on. And I'm going to now take that on here with the sewing oil, and that'll give me a little more texture. But again, I'm not harming and I've got a little bit more oil on it than I did last time. So increase that, and you can see more of the old oil coming off, old dust. And it's nice to, like I say, I think it's kind of cool to save this for the last. Because the funny thing is, a lot of the restoration work that I do is not something that you can see once it's done. That's why I post all the photos of the restoration on the posting, and that's why I made the videos, because otherwise, once it's done, then there's not really anything to see, and what you see is simply a sewing machine, and anyone can take a sewing machine and clean it up and even squirt oil in it, but again, if you're going to buy a machine and you want to restore it yourself, that's great, but that's why you don't want to pay a lot, because your time is very valuable. All of us have the same amount of time in a day that all of our ancestors did, 24 hours. And so, again, all of the time and effort that was spent, and you guys saw it on the videos, on this machine alone, which was, this restoration did not take particularly that long, I believe now I'm looking at about 6.5 hours. I don't consider that very high for going through a machine that may have not been used in a long time. I have spent far longer on some of the machines that I've overhauled. So again, I wanted to kind of let you see this, guys. I'm going to go over the machine and getting some of this down here to come off. Going to get her all cleaned up, and then it will be time to actually do the test stitching and test sewing, or what I call sewing off, if you will. So stay tuned, and I will be doing that, and then this machine will be ready and available to work once again. Thanks for watching.